Easter 1980. I was 19 years old, married with a 1-year-old daughter and living in the ACT. And I was lining up to do my very first parachute jump with 60 Army cadets from the Duntroon Military College. Now, some of you may wonder what on earth the young mother of 19 was doing lining up with 60 young men from Australia's college. But the question I was asking myself was, how on earth did I end up 19 and married and a mother and living in Canberra? I mean, it's not that I didn't like motherhood, because I loved motherhood. It's one of the best things I have ever done. But it just hadn't been part of my plan. My plan at 18 was to buy a combi van, drive north to a commune in Nimbin, tie-dye, make soap and olive bare feet. And there I was in Canberra, about as far away from Nimbin in distance as in ideology, and knee-deep in nappies and wearing 2 pairs of socks and a pair of boots. So my plan was in tatters, my self-esteem was shattered, so I was skydiving, parachuting to make a leap of faith, to restore my faith in me. My husband at the time was a member of the Canberra Skydiving Club, and every year they hosted the Royal Australian Army Duntroon Cadets compulsory recreational parachute camp. And I lined up with Australia's finest to take my first leap. And our instructor for the weekend was Major Andrew Harris of the SAS, the Special Armed Services, one of our elite killers, the bravest of the brave, toughest of the tough, and in Major Harris's case, the macho of the machoist. And he was none too pleased to have a little girlie join his ranks of men. Nevertheless, he put me through the training. Now, the first thing Major Harris taught us was the PLF, or Parachute Landing Fall. You see, in 1980, the parachutes were round and they came down hard. And so, to avoid breaking every bone in your body, you had to land with your feet and knees together, elbows in and roll. And so you would distribute the shock of landing just evenly up the side of your body, thus preventing bone breakages. Now, to practice this, Major Harris had us jumping off the back of an army truck. Sadly, it was painfully obvious after 2 jumps that I could not do a PLF to save my life. But nevertheless, the training continued and we moved on to the parachute drill. And that was 1,000 false stabling from aircraft, 2,000 look and locate ripcord, 3,000 pull said ripcord, 4,000 check for your parachute, no parachute, 5,000 reach for your reserve parachute, 6,000 pull reserve ripcord. Now, the drill I had, as you can see, I still have that drill. But what I didn't have was the strength to pull that reserve ripcord. You see, my husband at the time was the packer of the parachutes, and the reserve parachutes had to be packed every 12 months. And just for a bit of fun, he would run me through the drill on the ground. I never once managed to open one of those parachutes on the ground. Nevertheless, this was 1980, before health and safety seemed relevant or important. And so, even though I lacked the grunt power and I couldn't do a PLF, I was clear to jump. Now, I remember that morning very clearly. It was one of those cold Canberra mornings where the air was so crisp you could reach up and snap it. Well, my nerves were so tight you could just about have snapped me as well. And I wasn't alone. The collective fear of all those skydivers hung over the drop zone like a thick fog. All right, soldier, time to kit up. I got my parachute on. Chest strap, check. Leg straps, check. check. All right, soldier, enter that aeroplane. I waddled over to the aeroplane looking more like a pregnant turtle than a burly soldier. And I climbed in, and after me climbed all the other soldiers and my fears as well. And as we sat on the aeroplane on the ground, I thought, this could be the last time I ever see my daughter, Allie, who's over there in the audience. But we taxied off, and as we rose into the air, a strange calm descended on me, and I was ready for that leap of faith. We climbed up to 2,500 feet, and we started in on the jump run. Power off! Yelled Major Harris, and the pilot backed off the speed. All right, soldier, out you go. Well, the soldier left the aeroplane with military precision, hand over hand, till he was hanging off the strut of the aeroplane out the door. Major Harris sat there in the doorway, checking the spot. Go! He clung on. Go! He still clung on. Go! He clung on for grim death. Well, in a quick change of strategy, Major Harris yelled, "Power run!" And the pilot picked up the speed, and that reluctant paratrooper was blown away. Second jump run. My turn. Power down. All right, girlie, out you go. There was no military-like precision. I was slow and clumsy, but when he yelled go, I had gone. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. The parachute opened. Oh, God. I had a few moments of euphoria under the canopy until I hit the ground with a thud. I jumped up, I waved at everybody, promptly took myself off to hospital for check for breakages. Luckily there were none, but I did have a very bruised pride. Now most skydivers will tell you that they lose their fear after a few jumps. Well, I never did. While I was on the ground, there was always fear, and I actually used to take this opportunity to breastfeed my children because that was about the only thing that calmed me down. So if my children have inherited a fear of heights, I'm sure that's where it's come from. But luckily for me, technology improved, and I graduated to a square parachute that came down nice and soft because I never managed to do a PL8. And up until this point, I still hadn't managed to open one of those reserve parachutes. Now, one hot summer's day, I was at the Australian National Skydiving Championships, and the heat was rising off the tarmac in waves. And I was jumping out of an old DC-3 with 49 other skydivers. Now, this many skydivers in the air poses all sorts of new dangers. You can be in free fall and smash into each other and be killed. You can open your parachute, be smashed into beside somebody in free fall, be killed. You can open your parachute, somebody else open their parachute and be killed. But nevertheless, the 50 of us took the leap of faith that day. We jumped out at about 15,000 feet, giving us over a minute in free fall, where we did numerous formations. And then at 3,000 feet we separated, and I went flying off looking for a clean bit of air to deploy my parachute. At 2,500 feet, I pulled. Nothing. I tried again, nothing. Well, terminal velocity, only seconds to impact, and all of a sudden, time stopped. And I can remember it so clearly thinking, shit, this is it. Do or die. That was the SAS training coming in, do or die. And I reached for my reserve parachute and I pulled. Now my reserve parachute had an interesting history. It was second hand I got it cheap. And it was known locally as the 1/8 of an inch parachute. You see, its previous owner, sadly deceased, had neglected to pull his ripcord out far enough. And the accident investigators found that a mere 1/8 of an inch had cost him his life. So I pulled, and I pulled again, and I pulled again, and snap! The parachute opened. Now, all those jumps were leaps of faith, because up until that point, I didn't know whether I would find the strength. And there was always fear. But you know, the fear of those physical leaps of faith just does not compare with the metaphorical leaps of faith. You know the metaphorical leaps of faith, you know, where you end a relationship or start a relationship, a new career, moving home, going to another country. They're the leaps of faith that are really, really scary. You see, when you skydive, once you go, you're gone. You can't regret the decision. You can't change your mind. You can't climb back on the aeroplane. You go, you've gone, and you know that outcome within minutes. Seconds if you're unlucky. But with the metaphorical leaps of faith, you have so much time. And that's when all those fears crowd in. The what ifs, oh my God, what have I done? What if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? What am I doing? And that's when time stops. But with the metaphorical leaps, you can also change your mind. And you can climb back on that aeroplane. And you can continue safe and sound like before on your journey. But if anybody's been on a long haul flight, you'll know that your legs get cramped and eventually you just have to move. And I think life's like that. I think life forces us to move. Well, recently, I took the biggest metaphorical leap of my life. But my soul yelled go, and I went. But the fears just came crashing in, and I went into free fall, and not a nice stable free fall. It was an out of control flailing descent with terminal velocity and seconds to impact, and snap. Grace and courage unfurled like a parachute. And I haven't quite landed this jump yet, but I can say that the ride has been exhilarating, the view breathtaking, and I will land it in 2 days' time when I'm marrying a certain Swedish storyteller.